The Christmas Truce of 1914. World War I was one of the most bloody conflicts in human history. In the damp, dark trenches, cramped into tight quarters, many suffered from diseases, most forced to walk in soaking wet mud, drenched in blood, constantly witnessing the bodies of their dear childhood friends pile up day by day. The soldiers who fought in this war, no matter their allegiance, were nicknamed the Lost Generation for a reason. Interestingly, though, the men fighting this war pondered almost daily as to why they were fighting. The opposing side was very much human, like themselves, and hardly anyone truly cared for some random Austro-Hungarian royal. What was the purpose behind this senseless slaughter? To preface, here's how the system worked between the two sides. There was a trench on each side, in between being a place named after a basement dweller's metal band, No Man's Land. The majority of the fighting was tit for tat, with each side gaining maybe an inch of ground every day. Almost everyone in this situation would become nihilistic or almost downright mutinous. But where would they flee to? If they ran outside of the trench, they'd face almost certain death. It was a prison that was made for them by globalist interests. Word came in scarcely from outside sources and was the only means of entertainment for the enlisted men. You're probably wondering how they got these letters at the front lines, and that will be a video in and of itself for a later date. Being at the time in the world where it wasn't socially stigmatized to have religious beliefs, most men fighting in the war were Catholic. And on December 7th, 1914, Pope Benedict XV proposed that the war be put on hold for Christmas. The government of the countries at war decided to ignore this proposition, but the soldiers heard it loud and clear. With the start of Christmas Eve, instead of fighting, there were many German and British troops who sang Christmas carols to each other from the trenches. Allied sources report that at some points, they even heard brass bands from the German side of the trench. With the coming Christmas Day, an event would take place that is unprecedented in modern war. German soldiers came out of their trenches, crossing into no man's land, unarmed, and wished the Allied soldiers a Merry Christmas in their native English tongue.
Hello. Merry Christmas. Hello there. Merry Christmas.
Allied soldiers at first thought this was a trick, but seeing them unarmed, some began to slowly climb from their trenches and shake the hands of the men they'd been fighting. Some men lit Christmas trees together, shared cigarettes with one another, some enjoying a smoke they hadn't had in a long time. There was even a documented case of a soccer match that broke out. Both sides let each other retrieve their lost friends' bodies, and an overall peace was had for a time.
German Lieutenant Kurt Zehmisch recalled, "How marvelously wonderful, yet how strange it was. The English officers felt the same way about it. Thus Christmas, the celebration of love, managed to bring mortal enemies together as friends, if only for a short time."
This truce was one of the last times we've seen the notion of chivalry prevail between enemies during times of war. Attempts were made later on to the future, but they were squashed by threats from higher-ranking officers. Perhaps times have changed, but it served as unwavering proof that beneath everything, regardless of who you're fighting, you're both still human.